Hey all. Um, so a few years back, I came up with this bass fuzz overdrive circuit called the Avalanche, and it was heavily inspired by Felix Pappalardi from Mountain's bass tone. Um, I had, uh, before I even started Mountainking. I know I've told the story before, but whatever. Um, I had picked up bass. I had been playing kind of crazy electronic music with just a bunch of crap plugged into each other and making a huge racket or whatever. Um, and then I was in a weird headspace, and I was kind of like thinking about when I was younger and played guitar, sitting in my room playing along to like Cream records and Black Sabbath records, and I had this bass that I picked up years ago, but I had, you know, this is long after I stopped playing guitar and started playing electronics, and but I had it just because I got it. It looked cool, it's cheap, and I picked it up. And one day I just sat down and I was um, playing on it through amp, and I just got hooked, and I was just playing like all these just heavy bluesy, very Cream inspired type of stuff, and then I grabbed what distortion pedals I had at the time, and I was like trying stuff out, and nothing really did it for me. I wanted an overdriven sound, but I wanted it to be clear. I wanted to have enough low end, all this, and around that time I was really getting into Mountain and Felix Pappalardi's bass tone and playing, and um I got to the point where I was like, yeah, how does he get that sound? I really, and I knew he, was playing, Gibsons with those, heavy duty pickups going through, cranked Sun amps. And I tried to get the equipment he had, but I'm like, nothing that I was doing was giving me that sound. And I realized at some point that his amp techs, I'd read an interview with Felix Pappalardi, and said he's like, I don't know what they're asking about his distinct tone. He's like, I don't know what my amp guy did, but he did something to the top end. So I guess he was saying that he, did something to the, treble frequencies to give it that, distinct tone. Um, and I kept buying pedals, and then I was modifying pedals, and I was like, finally I had a little Radio Shack experiment kit with a breadboard, and I was like, before I rip apart any more pedals or buy any more pedals, let me see if I can just do some experiments to see what I can do. And that started it all. And soon I was hooked, and I was just, designing circuits one after another and modifying and then making them better and all this stuff. I just abandoned all other circuits, and I'm like, I'm going to design my own shit because that's going to be designed for me. Um, and I was focused on bass uh, centric pedals, distortion in particular. And I, came up with a bunch, but I never really got one that sounded like his tone. I had ones that were close, like the Magnetar, that kind of has some of that, like, weird horn, synthy, square wave, squashed kind of thing. Um, and some others had some other aspects of it, but whatever. I was just like, it's okay, because I eventually stopped playing bass anyway, and I just, it wasn't that big a deal. Excuse me. Um, Fast forward to few years ago, I was thinking about this. modified ruckus that I modified once, and it did this weird like envelope filtery kind of thing, kind of like it didn't sound like the ruckus when you had this one switch engaged, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, I'm like, I'm not sure I know how I did that, and it drove me crazy. So I had to start experimenting. So I pulled out a breadboard and started experimenting. And at some point, I had a circuit. It wasn't, it was the ruckus, but a whole bunch of my pedals use the same kind of like circuit. It's just tweaked, so each one has its own character and stuff. But anyway, I picked up bass, I plugged into it. I was like, wow, I'm like, that really gets that like Felix Pappalardi sound, like that, throaty kind of distinct low mid-range sound, and I had this weird, upper harmonic thing going on, with that like slight envelope filter, like when you hit a string, it does something real, this fast kind of like, it's hard, this envelope thing that alters the upper harmonics while it's doing it. Anyway, so I did what I always do. I heard something I liked, and then I like took it off in its own direction and tried to like really emphasize that sound. And eventually I made a prototype, and I posted something, and it got a huge response. Like, I honestly didn't realize people even cared that many people even knew who Felix Pappalardi was. I mean, obviously he's not, Mountains was a huge band, and he, Felix Pappalardi wrote for the band Cream. But yeah, I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then I built some, and then I got to the point where I built one, and it didn't sound right. It didn't sound right at all. And I was like losing my mind trying to figure out what was wrong with it. I was like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, everything here is right. Like, the circuit is right. Turned out that there was a diode that I was using that had to be a very particular diode, or it doesn't do its thing. Anything it can be as close as possible, but it's got to be the right one. And I had bought like this. I have this like vintage Radio Shack in my house, just boxes full of like new old stock like Radio Shack and Archer brand parts, and I had a thing of germanium diodes, a pack of them. And when I ran out of them, I was like, crap. I'm like, these were very particular. And then I knew what they were, or I figured I knew what they were. And I went and just bought more, and I was like, these don't work right. These are not the same, And then I'm like measuring diodes, and there's such a small difference in like the voltage. It's like, diodes are like these like one-way signal things. A signal will go one way, it gets blocked the other way. But there's this like small amount of voltage where like it kind of like flips, and this circuit uses the diode like a voltage controlled resistor, essentially. But it's an envelope control one, because it's just the signal you put into the circuit goes through the diode, and it does. It's hard to explain, but it needs to be a particular diode or it doesn't work. And I bought tons, and they didn't work, and got some more. And so when people would ask me, to build one, I'm like, well, it's like I can't really officially put this pedal out there because I just can't find enough of these diodes. Like if I could find like a source for them, then I would be like, okay, cool. But the other thing is, as time went on, I was like, this because people were like, "Oh, I heard you have this pedal. It sounds like Felix Pappalardi's, bass overdrive fuzz." I was like, "Yeah, it kind of does." I'm like, like really underselling it because I was just like, it has a very, it definitely has like his tone in there, but there's something I always felt was missing. And the controls I put on the pedal were all to kind of just like fine tune it to someone's particular rig. It sounds like that you really need to kind of EQ your amp the right way. Otherwise, no pedal is going to do, no pedal is going to like overcome your EQing, so if you cut too much of this or boost too much of this, but more if you cut too much of this, you're never going to let through certain frequencies. But I tried to make it so that, whatever amp you have, you can set it so that it's, the best for your setup. So the controls don't really do anything drastic. But anyway, recently somebody asked to order one, and I said sure. And I was building it, and I was like, I better test out like the transistor and the diode, breadboard it, and make sure that everything is good. And I also wanted to tweak stuff. Like I said, I was never really completely happy with the circuit. I kept going back and forth between components and thinking like, oh, does this sound a little better than this? And just kind of driving myself crazy, really. When you start, honing in your mental ear on things like that, you just start getting like confused. Or I do. It's like, you're not sure what you're hearing anymore. It's just become so cerebral that you're just like in a whole other universe. So anyway, I breadboarded the circuit and I was tweaking it and I got it sounding good. And I was thinking, the thing that's missing from the sound of this pedal is that upper harmonic content, that like buzzy, very particular sound. The Avalanche has that like fundamental, like deep mid-range horn kind of brassy sound. But the top end is just, it's not quite as like crisp and articulate. And I thought, how can I do this without messing up the sound that's already there? It's like a very simple circuit and it's very sensitive to what it's connected to because of impedance things. And I tried a bunch of stuff and it didn't work. And I had this passive inductor based filter circuit that I've been using on a bunch of circuits I've been designing, tacking it onto the output of the circuit, and it just instantly brings in like this like very intense kind of upper frequency harmonics. I've been using it for circuits that, especially like my CMOS based logic circuits that have, just super high amplitude square wave. And this circuit does this weird thing. It's a low pass circuit, but what it does is creates this like resonant high frequency content when you hit it really hard. If you don't hit it hard enough, it just sounds like it just cuts low or cuts high end. But when you hit it hard enough, it does the exact opposite. Kinda. It's weird. It's a very strange circuit. It actually boosts a high end. I don't really understand how as possible, but whatever. And I tried just putting that onto the output of the circuit, but it's not high gain enough for it to do its thing, so it just kind of muffled it. And so most of what's on this breadboard is not the Avalanche. This is probably like my most ambitious effect pedal circuit yet. It's called the Stargate. It's used to be called the Portal, but whatever. But I just took a little chunk of it for the Avalanche. But I had this simple kind of op-amp amplifier circuit in the one section of the Stargate circuit. And I thought, well, maybe if I like take the output of the Avalanche and boost it without messing with its tone, if that's possible, and then use that circuit on top of that, it'll give me what I'm looking for. So I started experimenting. At first I was like, no, it's messing up the tone of the pedal too much. Like it's taking something away from it that I don't want to take away from it. But I tweaked and I got it, and I was like, wow, I'm like, that's pretty goddamn close to what I'm looking for, and Phil Pappalardi's tone is different on all each studio recording, the Leslie West Mountain record compared to like Climbing is completely different. The his live tone on the Road Goes Ever On, is that right? I got that right. Is completely different than like the Twin Peaks live album, which is like the reunion band or whatever, the 70s reunion band. So I'm not trying to like nail down his tone. I don't do that. Like I definitely, when I hear a sound that reminds me of a sound that I really love, I'll go off and like try to hone the circuit in on that. But I'm not looking to nail it down. It's just impossible, first of all. And second, I want my stuff to have its own thing, too. So, but anyway, it sounded pretty damn close. So I thought, I've been going back and forth, trying to decide what to do. Someone ordered one, and I'm like, I want to mess with this and just make some decisions before I just sell them the old version of it, essentially. So now I'm like, now I have this new thing going on. I have all these other decisions I need to make. Like, do I keep the old controls? The old controls, it was basically like a drive control that most of the time just keep cranked anyway. 2 toggle switches that adjusted the like weird filtering frequencies that don't do that much, but something. And then a switch that adds like diode compression and clipping to the output. And all these controls are really there just to like fine tune it to your particular rig to help you get the sound you want, as opposed to giving you a wide range of sounds to get from the pedal. It's it's has its thing, and that's what it does. And then I want it to be versatile on top of that, but without taking away from its core vision. So anyway, take a listen. This is just the regular Avalanche circuit at play here. Hold on a second. This is essentially like sort of half of the 2 switches for the filtering in here. It doesn't do too much, especially right through the headphones. When I hear it, just my ears from the speaker cabinet, there's like it does something to the top end a little bit more, like when this note's kind of dying away, That's a big part of distortion is what, like if you just put like, excuse me, like a tone, like a steady tone through a distortion pedal, it doesn't sound like anything. It's just a clipped version of whatever it is. It's how a guitar's signal goes from the attack throughout the decay that gives you that character that makes different distortion pedals different. I mean, it's not just that, but it's really like it's that you hit a string, because a guitar string, when you hit a guitar string, what comes out of your guitar is all these weird harmonics, and like they're jumping back and forth. If you really sit down and listen to just a plucked string, you'll hear this it's not just like I said, like it's not like playing like on a synthesizer where you hit it, the attack, and then it slowly goes down. Like it does other things. That's what filters are kind of for, to kind of replicate that. But and this just adds a little clipping, adds a little buzziness to when adding in that kind of the diode clipping at the so I'm happy with like the fundamental sound there, and some of that harmonic content is good, but it's missing like that really like bzz, that buzz. Let's drink some coffee. And so we have the circuit tacked onto the output of it, and now we're going to listen to it there. There's like variations depending on what value caps I put in there. The old circuit. Oops. Let's hope that stays in place. And let me see if I can do this. So here's now right now you're hearing the ruckus circuit with just like an amp on the outside, on the output of it, and it does modify the tone a bit. God damn it. Shit. Alright, we're not going to be able to do the switching back and forth. I was just going to show how the difference in the tone. There's a slight difference in the tone that the circuit adds, even that the circuit has on. How do I say this? It alters the sound of the ruckus a bit, even when I don't have like these caps in place boosting the high end. Let's see here. Like these leads are really flimsy. And further modify it. When you turn the drive down, it kind of like makes it a little flubby. It's I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's see how you can, it's this switch, it's like it's not until the note starts to die away that you really notice it, because when you hit, it kicks through, signal goes through that diode, sends it to the ground, and it does one thing. And then as your the envelope of your guitar signal kind of falls, the diode starts to close back up, and it like, so it has that like envelope filter type of effect. And here's without that circuit on the output. So, you know, one of the dilemmas is what to do, because I don't want it to alter the sound when, like, my idea was I would take the Avalanche as it is and maybe limit some of the resonant filter switch selections, because they're just not quite as, it's not quite as needed anymore with this new circuit, and then have like a switch that adds in this output stage, and then you have variations on how much buzzy, you know, the frequency of the buzziness. That way you don't have to have the original circuit always going through that output circuit. And, you know, like I said, it kind of modifies it. That's why I wish I would. Doesn't modify it much, but I don't know if, you know, it's, you know, I don't want to lose any of what I already had. So I don't know. I'm being a little. This is why I'm having you guys. This is why I'm talking to you guys about this, because I need some help. And then we add in the, you know, I could have a toggle switch for a 3-way version of, you know. Some of this diode compression. See, I like that. Oh shit. You know, I gotta decide whether to kind of, you know, kind of feel like I should just keep the diode compression at a certain like position essentially and get rid of the switch. I like it because it just does something to, I mean, like I said, it modifies the sound a little bit, but it just adds, it allows you to just add this weird high end, which is exactly what I've been wanting all this time. And there's, you know, multiple, it's kind of like 2 stages here. So I gotta make some decisions on this. I mean, the problem is, and it's the problem that's always been there, is finding those diodes. It seems ridiculous that I'm having such a hard time, but um, they're if I don't have them, the pedal doesn't sound right at all. This switch definitely, when you back off, because it affects the sound more when it's not, this input isn't getting hit as hard. When you dial back the drive, you hear the effect more. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I figure as far as finding sourcing out those diodes, they got to be out there. These are not like magic in that sense that they're like unattainium. I'm just, if it was 10 years ago, I probably could have found them easy, but things have changed since then with that kind of stuff, those kind of parts. Just things have exploded. But the decision comes down to really, the conundrum is what type of controls to put on the pedal. Because I don't want to have like a ton of controls that just slightly tweak out the circuit, like I want it to be something that does its thing, and depending on your rig, you can tweak the pedal to suit it, so that if it's too bright on one person's amp, you can, adjust it so that it's not that way. And too many controls just becomes, it just messes with people's heads. It's just like, oh, well, do I like this better than this? It's so close, it's like, nobody needs that when they're, it's one thing if you have like, it's like a synth module and you just have like a ton of controls and jacks and stuff, because it's, you're using it in a different way, but if you want to step on pedal and, make pretend you're Phyllis Papaloni Mountain, you don't want it to be too much. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this nonsense I've been talking about, and we'll see what happens.